Okay, so here's the Zoom meeting for Physics 232C. And the main purpose of this meeting is to just provide an introduction to the course. We'll have Zoom meetings once a week. And in those Zoom meetings, I'll explain how to do some of the homework problems. I'll provide hints for some of the homework problems. But today I just want to provide an introduction to the course. If you've taken an online course before, it'll be familiar to you. But if this is the first time you've taken an online course, you'll have to find out what needs to be done. First of all, we'll do all the work on the ln kappa system. So log on at lonkappa.msu.edu. That is where you'll find all of the materials for the course. Well, no, not the textbooks, but that's where you'll find all the homework problems and the assignments. Also, at ln kappa, the syllabus is stored there. And so you should read through the syllabus. It provides information like the grading scale, the exams, what resources are available. For each chapter, there'll be one chapter every week. There's a reading quiz, which is a small number of pretty easy questions to answer, and a problem set, which will be a number of more difficult problems to work out. So we'll take a look at those in a minute. Also, you need to know the textbooks. Well, we'll look at that on the ln kappa system. And there's some resources in what's called supplemental content. So we'll look at that. So I think the first thing we'll do is actually look at ln kappa for this course. So if you log on to ln kappa, you log on to lonkappa.msu.edu, and you click on this course. Somebody have a question? Or you just need to mute your microphone. So you'll see, this is what you'll see if you log on to ln kappa, or if maybe you've already done that. It starts out with the syllabus, and then some information, and then some problem assignments, and then the first exam, which of course is not ready yet, but you can see when it's going to be, February 8th. And this will be the work that has to be done from now until February 9th, basically for the first month of the course. So let's take a quick look at the syllabus. You'll have to read over this yourself, but let's just take a look at what it includes. So here's the syllabus. It has information about the instructors. There are two instructors, Dr. Musolf, Professor Stump. Information about email addresses, Zoom, Zoom coordinates, and so on. Then there's a course description for Physics 232C. They're the prerequisites for the course. And the main prerequisite is for Physics 232C is Physics 231C, or the lecture course Physics 231. So in other words, this is the second semester of a two-semester sequence. And the main prerequisite is you have to take the first semester, Introductory Physics 1. Here's some information about office hours. The help room is called the Strosecker Center. It's room 1248 in the Biomedical and Physical Sciences building. It'll be open, and there will be teaching assistants in that room several hours per week. And you should get in the habit of going to the help room once a week or so to get some help on some of the homework problems. There'll be Zoom meetings. I guess most of the Zoom meetings will be Mondays, but not next week, because Monday next week is a holiday. So I think next week it'll be on a Tuesday. But mostly there'll be a Zoom meeting every Monday to review some of the problems in the homework assignment. There'll be weekly reading quizzes and problem sets. They're all assigned on Lon Kappa. We don't offer an honors option for Physics 232. Here's some information about exams. There'll be 3 midterm exams and a final exam. So all of the exams will be online. You'll do them on Lon Kappa. So here's information about what you need for the exam. Since it's online, the main thing you need is dependable internet access. So make sure you have either internet access in your dorm room or your apartment, which you know is dependable. If you don't have dependable internet access in your apartment, then find a place on campus where you can take the exam, where you know the internet access is dependable. Here are the exam dates. The first exam will be February 8th, and then there'll be an exam about a month later, and then there'll be another exam about a month later. The exact date for the final exam is not known yet, so that'll be announced later, but it'll be one of the days in final exam week. Here's some information about the midterm exams. You can use a help sheet during the exam. The 3 midterm exams will all count the same amount. The final exam will count twice as much as a midterm exam. Let's see, for the exams, if you have RCPD visa, you should send that to the instructor. Here's explaining how the final grade will be determined. Homework will count towards the final grade. The 3 midterm exams will count towards the final grade, and the final exam will count towards the final grade. There's also a small amount of points for what's called the pre-test and the post-test. So we'll look at those in a minute. Then finally, in the syllabus, there's a list of readings and problem set due dates. And the textbooks. There are actually going to be 2 textbooks. I don't think I have both the textbooks written down here, but I'll have to correct that. This is the major textbook. And then there will also be a secondary textbook. I'll say a little bit more about that in a minute. So the textbook is Essential College Physics, Volume 2, second edition. If you took Physics 231 here at MSU, you already used Essential College Physics Volume 1 for Physics 231. Well, we just continue with Volume 2, and you have to be sure to get the second edition because the homework, some of the homework problems will be taken from the second edition. If you buy the first edition, you won't have the homework problems, so you won't know what problems to do. Let's see. All the course management system will be Lon Kappa, not D2L. So we won't use D2L. And you will need a calculator, a scientific calculator. The calculator that you used in Physics 231 should be fine. Okay, so that's the syllabus. So now let's go back to the contents. So read over the syllabus. I forgot to include one thing, the second textbook. But anyway, read over the syllabus and be familiar with how the grade is determined and when the exams are and so on. There's a folder of slides and videos. So if you click on this folder, you'll see a bunch of folders. Let's see what's in this folder. It has some videos. Some people find it worthwhile to watch a video instead of just reading the textbook. The videos are not, the videos explain pages. When you're reading a textbook, if there's a topic you don't understand, you can watch the corresponding video. This is optional. I would say just reading the textbook is the most important thing. And the videos are not really necessary. But if you find it useful, some students have found it useful to look over the information in these slides and videos folders. There's one such folder for each chapter. Then that's a way you can study more for the course besides just the textbook. But it's optional. I would say it's probably not very useful, but that's up to you. There's also information here about the FAQ folder and the hints folder. So the FAQ folder, you'll find in supplemental content. We'll look at that in a minute. The hints folder, you'll find also in supplemental content, and that will provide hints on how to do the homework problems. So you should try to do the homework problems without the hints. You know, first read the chapter. You can't do the homework problems until you've read the chapter because you won't know the subject. So you read the chapter, then you know the subject. Read it and take notes. Then do the problems. And if you can't do a problem with the notes that you've taken during the time you're reading the chapter, then take a peek at the hints. We'll look at that in a minute. Here's a piece of information. Here are all the assignments until February 9th. So these are all the assignments for the first month. There are several Zoom meetings. There are some there are more Zoom meetings than these. These are not the only Zoom meetings, but these are the first couple of Zoom meetings. This one today and another one next Tuesday. And then there'll be a weekly Zoom meeting. Continue with watching those. We'll study 4 chapters in the first month. Chapters 15, 16, 17, 18. Each chapter has a reading quiz with a due date. Each chapter has a problem set with a due date. For the most part, the reading quizzes are due on Mondays. The problem sets are due on Wednesdays. The problem sets will open up about 7 days before they're due. So you'll have about a week to do the homework. Don't procrastinate. Don't leave it all till the last minute. Problem set 1 is going to be due Wednesday, January 17th. Don't start working on it Wednesday, January 17th. You won't be able to get it all done because the problem sets will probably take 5 or 6 hours. You need to spread them out over several days. Describes exam 1. That will cover these first 4 chapters. For each exam, after the exam, there's a corrections exam where you can get some bonus points. So you take the exam in the evening, Thursday, and then after the exam is done, you can get some bonus points by doing the corrections, which will be due a few days later. So look that over. That tells you the assignments for the first month. And then there are these folders which contain problems. So here's problem set 0. It's due Friday. Day is Wednesday. These problems are due Friday. Some people have already done them. But you haven't already done them, you should start working on them now, and you have to finish them by the end of Friday. So, here's a typical problem set. It's got some information. It's got some problems to do. A problem set 0 is the shortest one because it's just the first week of classes. But if we look at problem set 1, that's a bit longer. So you see there'll be, 15 or 20 questions. That's going to take a number of hours to finish all those. So, they're due Wednesday, January 17. Don't start working on them Wednesday, January 17. You got to start working on them several days earlier so that you can get all the problems done by the due date. Now, there's also a reading quiz with each chapter. So let's look at the reading. Here's a typical reading quiz. That'll have a smaller number of questions, and they'll be easier questions. So in fact, the reading quiz, you should be able to finish pretty quickly if you've read the chapter. If you haven't read the chapter and you try to do these problems, you won't be able to do them because you won't know the subject. You have to start by learning the subject. So first you read the chapter and take notes, and then you refer to those notes when you're doing the problems. But if you've read the chapter, these are just multiple choice questions, most of them. And, doing these questions shouldn't take more than maybe half an hour. So that'll be the typical problem assignments for each week. One reading quiz. There's no reading quiz for this week, but one reading quiz and one problem set. And then we'll be ready for the exam. Now, that's the main content. But there's another place called supplemental content. So let's look at the supplemental content. What's in the supplemental content? Well, there's the hints folder, the FAQ folder, the Zoom folder, and a few other things. So let's take a look at the hints folder. Well, for each problem assignment, there's a page of hints. Well, multiple pages of hints. So here's the hints for the assignment that's due Friday. Problem set 0. You see it's a bunch of problems. For each problem, there's a hint. So try to do the problems without the hints. But if you get stuck on a problem, take a peek at the hints. So here are the hints for problem set 1. Here's problem set 1. It's got about, I don't know, what's that? 5, 10, 15, maybe 20 questions. And now, for each question, there'll be a hint, which will help you get started on the question. Now, there's a general method for solving these problems. The general method is, first of all, draw pictures, then write equations, then apply algebra to those equations to calculate the unknowns, and then finally pick up a calculator and do the numerical calculations. That's the general method for approaching each problem. So, let's look at this problem. Problem 46 in chapter 15. Now, here's a picture which shows you what the problem is, and you draw a picture and label it. Don't label it with the numbers, label it with the symbols. Okay, so maybe you draw 2 pictures. Anyway, that'll remind you while you're trying to work out the calculation what you're dealing with. Then there are equations that you'll need. So you may need 1 or 2 equations to use. And then that doesn't give you the answer, because the answer is going to be typed into one of these boxes. It will be usually the result of a calculation. Calculation will be described in problem 46. So you have to do the calculation. It'll usually be a number with a unit. You took this in Physics 231. You know that you have to calculate something. There'll be a number and a unit. So you have to figure out the correct number. You have to figure out the correct unit and type that in this box. So, here are the equations that you'll use. And now, depending on what you're asked to calculate, you calculate that expression or this expression. So that's the approach for all problems in physics. You start by drawing a picture. So here's a picture. Maybe you have to have more than one picture. And then you write down the necessary basic equations, and then you apply algebra to calculate the unknown. No, I want the supplemental content. So that's the hints folder. Here's the FAQ folder. Here are a bunch of questions, the answers to questions about things you might be wondering, like how to contact the instructors. Well, that's explained in FAQ number 1. Most important thing here is always send email to both instructors. Here are the email addresses. Don't send email to one instructor. Send the same email to both instructors. If you have an RCPD visa, you've got to send that to both instructors. If you want to have an assignment rescheduled or something like that, like rescheduling an exam or reopening an assignment, there are instructions in FAQ number 4 and 4A. If you have a question about a problem, don't send email. If you have a question about a problem, write the question in the discussion board for that problem. And then somebody will see you raised a question, they'll try to answer it, and then everybody in the class will be able to see what was a question about this problem and what's the answer to that question. So don't send email if you have a question. Write the question in the discussion board. So that's the FAQ folder. What else is there in here? Can you request, if you missed an assignment, can you request extra time? Possibly, but possibly not. I missed the deadline for an assignment. Can I get the assignment reopened? And the answer is possibly, perhaps. You have to explain why you were not able to do the problem, give good reasons. The reason for missing a deadline has to be a valid reason. For example, illness, injury, family emergency, some event beyond your control, etc. Invalid reasons include, but are not limited to, I forgot to do the assignment. No, that's not a valid reason. I didn't know when it was due. No, that's not a valid reason. It says right on the problem in Lon Kappa when it's due. So you should know when it's due. It's not advantageous to get extensions for the homework because then you get behind in the class and it'll be very difficult to catch up. So, spread the work out over several days and finish it by the due date. If the request is turned down, but you have a valid reason, for example, if you get COVID, suppose you get COVID and you're too sick to do the homework. Well, then you're not going to be able to get the homework points. But we may excuse you from that assignment if you have a valid excuse, like I got COVID. I couldn't do anything but stay in bed. Well, we may give you an excuse, so you could get a sort of a absence, an excused absence. How to do that, you'll have to read FAQ number 4A. If you get excused from an assignment, you still need to do the problems to be ready for the next exam. So here was FAQ 4, request a missed assignment to be reopened. How can I request to be excused from an assignment? Well, you have to follow these instructions to request excused absence. All right. Now, people your age usually don't get sick, so that's not likely to happen. But every so often somebody may get COVID, or you may have an accident, you're in the hospital, you can't do your homework if you're in the hospital. So we can't always reopen the homework. We can't reopen the homework after the answers have already been published, but we could give you an excused absence. 4B is about makeup exams. If you can't take an exam at the scheduled time, you can request a makeup exam. Read FAQ 4B. You've all had experience with Lon Kappa, so if Lon Kappa says your answer is wrong, you just have to do it over again until you get the right answer. FAQ 8 is a little special. I don't know how to use Lon Kappa, so what should I do? Because some of you have probably seen Lon Kappa before. Most of you have probably seen Lon Kappa before. But in case you didn't use Lon Kappa before, what should you do? Read FAQ 8. That explains how to use Lon Kappa. How to use significant digits, how to record numbers in the answer box, how to record units in the answer box. There's certain correct ways and incorrect ways. We'll read that. Some answer boxes, the answer will be a formula. So you have to write a formula, an algebraic expression. So read the little paragraph here about formulas to find out how to give answers that are in the form of formulas. All right, so that was the hints folder, the FAQ folder, the Zoom folder. there'll be a weekly Zoom meeting, and I'll put notes that I'm going to use in the Zoom meeting in this folder. So if you miss the Zoom meeting, well, if you miss the Zoom meeting, you can watch the recording. But if you didn't follow something in the recording, or you came to the meeting and you didn't follow something, you can look up the notes from the Zoom meeting here. All right, so that's the supplemental content. Now let's go on to something new. Well, let me just say one thing about if you have a question on the homework. So suppose you have a question on the homework. I don't know if there are any questions here. Suppose you can't figure out the problem. Let's take a look at this. Suppose you can't figure out the problem. You want to ask a question. Put it in the discussion. So click on post discussion. And then put in a subject. I have a question. And then put a question here. What does this mean? And explain your question. Then send it. And now it will appear as a little bubble right here. This little bubble means somebody has asked a question about this problem. And somebody else who's having trouble with this problem should look at the questions that have been asked, because somebody may have already asked the question, will help you, and someone else may have answered it, which will help you figure out how to do the problem. So you click on this bubble and you'll see what the question was. And there may have been an answer. You know, somebody may have replied to this question, so there may be an answer. And so by looking at the questions and answers, it'll help you do the problems that you're stuck on. All right, so that's enough about Lon Kappa. I think, again, probably many of you have used Lon Kappa before, but it'll take a little while to get used to using Lon Kappa. It's pretty easy. It'll only take a few, you know, you'll quit. Well, this first assignment will get you experience in using Lon Kappa. All right, now for the spring semester, these are the topics in the course. Electric and magnetic fields, that's chapters 15 through 18. Time dependence of the fields, that's chapters 19 and 20. Optics, because light is an electromagnetic wave, so once you understand electric and magnetic fields, you can pretty much explain all the topics in optics. 2 chapters on that, 21 and 22. And then the final week, or the final month actually, is on modern physics, 20th century physics. The photon theory of light, for example, or the quantum theory of atoms, or the theory of the atomic nucleus. So there are 23, 24, 25, 3 chapters on modern physics, and that'll be the last part of the course. You can see there, what's that? 11 chapters, and the semester is 14 weeks long. So it's approximately 1 chapter each week. And the thing to know, and you know this from Physics 231, the material is cumulative. That is to say, if you skip chapter 20, you won't know how to do chapter 21. Or if you have COVID, while we're studying chapter 20, and so you didn't have a chance to study chapter 20, when you recover from COVID, you won't be able to do chapter 21 nor chapter 22. You'll have to go back and study chapter 20. So try not to get sick. But be aware that you can't skip a chapter, because that'll throw you off for all the remaining chapters. If you skip a chapter, you'll not be prepared for the next chapter. Now, why are you taking physics? We could say, why are you taking physics again? You already took physics. You took physics 231 or some equivalent course. Why are you taking physics again? Well, the answer is, what's your major? I looked up all the majors represented by students in this class this semester. And you can see they're about, I don't know, what's that? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 10, 15, 30. There are approximately 30 different majors being taken by students who are taking Physics 232. So many majors take a course like this on Introductory Physics Part 2. Let's take a look at some of the animal science. 24 students in animal science are taking this major. Biomedical laboratory, construction management, human biology. Some students who major in human biology are planning to apply to medical school. All medical schools require students who would be admitted to have a year of physics. Kinesiology. These are all Lyman-Briggs courses, the LB, all the LB majors are Lyman-Briggs. Lyman-Briggs is the residential science college. Most of these are science courses, so many Lyman-Briggs students with many different majors. Lyman-Briggs is a college, so it has different majors. So there are many Lyman-Briggs students. Packaging, there are 42 students majoring in packaging who are taking Physics 2, and many others. So if you're enrolled, you should see your major, your academic program listed on this list, unless you signed up later. It's a good idea to form a study group with other students in the class to study the Physics 232 material, and in particular to work together on the homework. So we always recommend that students work together on the homework. Don't just copy the answers from another student in the class. You have to understand each problem, but read the problems together and work on the problems together. And if there's some problem you're stuck on, ask somebody else in your study group to explain to you how to go about solving it. Then solve it yourself so that you will understand it. And, there are 42 students taking packaging courses. There are probably some students taking packaging if your major is packaging, you're probably in some packaging courses with other students taking this Physics 232. So try to identify, some people in your major that you can form a study group with. Or, it could just be somebody in your dorm. If you're living in a dorm, you might have some other people in the same dorm taking Physics 232. Well, meet them and get together with them once a week or so to look over the homework assignment. So it's a good idea to form study groups. So what should you be doing now? Well, right now you should be doing problem set 0. It's kind of a warm up just to get used to using ln kappa. If you've used ln kappa before, you'll find it quite easy. That's due Friday. Then read chapter 15. That's on electric charges and electric fields. Something you probably don't know already. So read the chapter, spend, it's probably about, I don't know how long it is, maybe it's about 25 pages long, probably take about 3 hours to read the chapter. Read it carefully and take notes. The really important thing is to take notes. You should have a notebook which is just for Physics 232 and not used for any other purpose. And as you read chapter 15, take some notes that you see, mostly equations. You'll see some important looking equations. We'll take those, write those down in your notebook. Then do the reading quiz and do the problem set. The reading quiz should not take very long. The problem set will take multiple hours. So try to spread out the problem set over a period of a few days so that you don't end up trying to do them all at the last minute when you don't have much time. And attend the next Zoom meeting. That'll be next Tuesday. Normally we'll have the Zoom meetings on Monday, but Monday's a holiday, so it'll be Tuesday. We'll have it at 7 p.m. And I'll go over some examples in the problem set for chapter 15 to give you some hints and to show you how to do the problems most effectively. So that's what you're doing now. Here's, the month of January. So where are we? We're right here. We're right here. Problem set 0 is due Friday. Then you should already start reading chapter 15. Reading quiz 1, which is for chapter 15, will be due Tuesday, and problem set will be due Wednesday. Now there's also this pre-test. You can get a little extra credit by doing the pre-test, and there'll be a corresponding post-test at the end of the semester. So this is worth doing. Shouldn't it take about an hour? In fact, it has a time limit. I think it has a time limit of 70 minutes. It'll open up earlier in the week, so it'll be open for several days. You can work on it for several days, but you have to do the whole thing in one 70-minute period. In other words, you can't do half the exam on Tuesday and the other half the exam on Wednesday, or the test. You have to do them all in a 70-minute period of time, but your last chance to do it is Thursday night. By doing the pretest, you will get 1% of your final grade. That'll make up 1% of your final grade. And then the post-test at the end of the semester will be another 1%. Doesn't sound like much, but it's worth it to get those additional points. All right, then the third week in January will be on chapter 16. That's the electric potential or voltage. And again, read chapter 16, do the reading quiz, do the problem set. And then the final week of January will be chapter 17. That's electric currents. This is volts. This is amps. So read chapter 17, do the reading quiz, do the problem set. Then we're in February, and there'll be one more chapter and then the first exam. So that's all I had for tonight. I won't go over any problems, but we'll have a Zoom meeting this day. Is that the day? January 16th will be another Zoom meeting. So here's another Zoom meeting. And I'll go over some example problems from the first problem set. So, sort of give you some ideas of how to do these problems. And then we'll have a Zoom meeting here and a Zoom meeting here. But for tonight, I won't go over any problems. You can just do problem set 1 on your own. Now, let's see if there are any questions. Nobody has submitted a question to the chat box. So there are no questions on the meeting chat. Does anybody want to just unmute your microphone and speak up and ask a question? Or if you'd rather not speak up, but you'd rather just type the question into the chat box. Okay, well, if there are no questions, then I will stop the recording.